Brothers and sisters, welcome back to my channel. So, I asked on my Twitter which were the best replays, which were the best games to analyze. And after their suggestion, I decided to go over those and analyze every singular thing, every singular play, every singular spot. I know this might be complicated for someone, and also you might tell me, Nash, but like it was words, it happened to me. I have nothing to say about it. Obviously the pressure is very high. I'm just here for educational purpose. And I just want you to learn how to play perfectly. Because yes, I could miss those lines too. But like the more we look at those lines and the more we analyze those lines, the less they are gonna happen. So let's move on. On Jesse Kotton against Tigershark92. Yes, but there are many things to analyze. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I want you to see those things, because those are actually super interesting. Like, actually super interesting. So let's move and start with the gameplay. I also brought their end in order to understand what's going on and why they played a certain situation in a certain manner. So let me stop the replay and let's talk about the end. So right now, the end of Tigershark92 is Speedroid Terror Top, 1 Hero Kid, and 3 Infinite Impermanents. Okay? So let's move on to the gameplay. So basically, he needs an access to a rank 2. He needs to establish a gigantic, and that's why he's gonna start with Terror Top. Obviously, you start with Terror Top because if you control no monster, you special summon this card. That's a no-brain move right there, and it's a very straightforward. His end is actually very straightforward. The deck is actually very straightforward. So we will move on and summon Cherubini. Now, Cherubini effect is actually a cost. You cannot impermanence this card, because the moment you impermanence this card, you are gonna look like a bot. And the actual effect is Cherubini boosting his own attack. So don't be a buy. So he's gonna send the Water Enchantress in order to add a Ride over a Measure, and then he's gonna play establishing an Omni Negation. Now, it's super important for this deck, especially because this deck is very straightforward to establish an Omni Negation. As you can see, after he went for the Fateful Adventure, he normal summoned Hero Kid in order to add the Equip spell, so he doesn't have to discard any card in the process. The entire combo is gonna be free in order to establish an Omni Negation, so he's gonna add Wandering Griffon with the Fateful Adventure and discard the Draco back from the end, which is gonna trigger his own effect in order to equip itself to the token. Remember, it's actually a very nice thing that I discovered by playing Dragon Link with the Adventure cards. The Fateful Adventure protects any monster equipped with a spell. Any monster. Like, it doesn't have to be Draco back, and it doesn't have to be an Adventure. It's actually super fun. Anyways, we established the Wandering Griffon as an Omni Negation, and then we turn the Cherubini and Hero Kid into Elf, and then Elf effect is gonna reborn the Hero Kid. Now, Hero Kid has an interesting effect, because when this card is special summoned, you can special summon any number of Hero Kids from your deck. Now, the text of this card is also super interesting, because it says when and you can. And you would say, Nash, but like, why is it so interesting that it says when and you can? Well, in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Problem text card solving, when a card says when you can, it has to be summoned in Chain Link 1. Because if this card is summoned in Chain Link 2, for example, let's assume that your opponent activates a card in Chain Link 1 and you chain Elf in Chain Link 2 in order to summon Hero Kid will lose timing, which means it will not be able to activate. Let's proceed with the gameplay. Special summon Hero Kid in Chain Link 1, and then Hero Kid is gonna trigger in order to special summon 2 more copies of Hero Kid. And now we're gonna use 2 Hero Kids on the board in order to summon a Gigantic in the zone that Elf points to. Now, we might discuss about the the materials that were used for Gigantic. You would say, Nash, okay, it's 2 level 2. Yes, but if you use the Hero Kid in the zone number 3 and in the zone number 5, you're gonna have also Spright Blue that gets summoned in the zone of Elf, which gets protected by impermanence. But why Tigershark did not care about it? It's very simple, because Jesse Kotton is playing a 60 card pile. Now, 60 card piles, you have to understand that in those scenarios, it can only be 2 decks, especially in Wars. It can only be Branded or Tier Terrorist pile. Now, the Tier Terrorist pile is a grass turbo deck with many discard voltage. And the Branded deck, it's basically a NAS deck that plays grass in order to go +1 every time it resolves as grass. We are talking about Jesse Kotton. We are talking about someone who has literally a poster of Fairy Tail Luna, so he's probably playing tier. What I'm expecting Tigershark to do in this situation, in which is basically Ziomundri, is to not only end on the Griffon, but also to end on Carrot. Why? Because Terrorist tier plays cards like Trust, Talent, and Grass, that if they resolve, the game is over. So, let's proceed. So he goes Gigantic, Summon Blue, Blue add the Jet, and now he's gonna link those two away in order to summon an IP Masquerena. And then he's gonna special summon Jet. Jet is gonna add anything. I think it's gonna be starter in this scenario, because as I said previously, he wants to establish a Carrot on the board. And then he's gonna link away the Jet and the Hero Kid in order to summon the Pit Knight early. Now, Pit Knight early is an interesting card, which becomes basically an effect negation, because Elf points to Pit Knight and Pit Knight points to Elf. So they are co-linked to each other because both arrows points to each other. So since Pit Knight points to Elf, and Elf is a quick effect, Pit Knight can negate a monster on the board if Elf is used in Chailing 2, and Chailing 3 has to beat Pit Knight. Remember that Pit Knight has to be chained directly to Elf in order to negate, because it's a quick effect. Now, set 3, and those three cards, we already know those 3 cards are 3 impermanents. Obviously, Jesse doesn't know it, but let's talk about this field. This field is super interesting. This field is something that we actually need to discuss, because let's talk about the sequence. The sequence, the optimal sequence is to establish follow-up and create interruption. Now, there is an issue with this entire board. This entire board did not establish follow-up. The follow-up is basically given by the Spright Elf. And the Spright Elf needs to resolve. If a Spright Elf does not resolve, that means that we have no follow-up. So, even though this might seem like not a very important thing, you will have to understand that if you are playing like several turns, you want to kill on turn 3. You don't want to play for several turns because you don't have enough pushes. This deck does not have enough pushes. So in order to win on turn 3, the Spright Elf needs to resolve and establish follow-up. So how do we do that? Let's talk about now the sequence. The sequence, the optimal sequence that you really want to accomplish, but it's most likely not gonna happen, is that you wanna use the Griffon as the first interruption, because so it will go back in the deck. So we will have a free spot on the board. After that, we want our opponent to summon a monster from his hand, and then you wanna go. His monster is gonna be Chailing 1, assuming it's gonna be a trigger effect. You're gonna go Chailing 2 Elf, Chailing 3 Pit Knight early, so we got a 2 and a 3. Okay? In order to negate the monster of our opponent. And then there is another thing that we want. We want with the Spright Elf to summon in the zone that Griffon left. So we want to establish follow-up, and the follow-up is basically guaranteed by special summoning on the board the Spright Jet that we have in the graveyard. After that, we have basically to decide if you want to use as interruption number 4 Carrot or Masquerena. Those ones are actually interchangeable. It doesn't really matter how you want to use those. Okay, the sequence of those 2 cards doesn't really matter, but the sequence of those 3 cards actually do matter if you do want to use every interruption. So, let's proceed. So, we see Jesse Kotton activating a card, and that card is Sarcophagus, King Sarcophagus. Now, again, at this moment we realized that Jesse actually has the poster of Fairy Tail Snow in his room. This is 100% terrorist tier. Now, terrorist tier has a lot of discard folders. By discard folders I mean that are cards that you want to have in the graveyard but you don't want to have in your hand. So the optimal thing to do in this scenario, there are only 2 things you can do here. You can activate Griffon in order to negate the Sarcophagus, or you want to keep the Griffon and surrender on the Pit Knight early by going IP and Pit Knight into an SP. Those are the only 2 options, and I think you do it on the activation of Sarcophagus, because otherwise he's gonna discard the card that has only value in the graveyard, which is basically a tier deck, which is basically the specialité of the tier deck, discarding cards that generates value in the graveyard. You can use Griffon, or you can use IP and Pit Knight to make SP in order to deal with the Sarcophagus. Now let's talk about those 2 possible interruptions to the Sarcophagus. Griffon, in my opinion, is very essential. Why? Because we have to play against cards such as Trust, and we need to play against cards such as Triple Tactical Talent, and we need to play against cards such as Grass. And also cards such as Trivic Karma in the graveyard, if he managed to discard those, or cards such as the Rainbow Bridge. So we want to keep our Omni Negation. And TR is not really a deck that plays on the board very early on in terms of monsters negation. So this Pit Knight, even though it might seem a very good interruption in a vacuum, is gonna be live too late in order to be optimized, which in my opinion makes sense in this position specifically to use IP and Pit Knight in order to make SP, and SP deal with the Sarcophagus, keeping the Griffon and the Carrot for spell pushes or trap pushes in the graveyard, as I mentioned previously. So we see that basically Tigershark92 decided to not use on the activation nor the Griffon or the IP, and in my opinion it's a mistake, because yes, sometimes you might be rewarded, but a lot of times you will be punished. So we see that Jesse Kotton is discarding Rainbow Bridge. Now, I think that Tiger Shark was waiting for Jesse Kotton to go neg in this scenario and then generate value by using the Griffon or using the IP in order to give 1 less card in the end of Jesse Kotton. Talking about the end of Jesse Kotton, we know that Jesse has, and it's gonna be crazy, Jesse has King Sarcophagus. He had, when he started the turn, King Sarcophagus, obviously Rainbow Bridge that he discarded, but he has 4 more cards that are Foolish Burial, Imseti, Trivic Karma, and Triple Tactical Talent. Now, you hear this hand, so we go IP Masquerena, into SP by using Pit Knight. Now, as I told you previously, the Pit Knight would have been live way too late. So he decided to go for SP in order to deal with the Sarcophagus, which makes sense. I am not against it. I am against, though, the fact that he let Jesse Kotton discard for free. And that was the first mistake spotted. So SP deals with the sarcophagus, Rainbow Bridge gets activated, and here we have another, in my opinion, not very optimal play. Tigershark decides to negate the Rainbow Bridge with Carrot. Yes, I do understand that. Negating the Rainbow Bridge is fine because Carrot does not negate the activation, which means that Rainbow Bridge cannot be used again. But he would have also been able to negate the spell card, the field spell that he adds of the Rainbow Bridge. So in this position, we see that a simple sarcophagus baited NIP, baited a Carrot, and sent to the graveyard an SP. That's 3 interruptions that were baited by a simple sarcophagus. Now there is a problem. This elf is gonna be SP, or it's gonna be follow-up. This Carrot cannot be an interruption or follow-up at the same time. Now the issue is, as I told you guys previously, that this end board did not generate enough follow-up. By that I mean that Jesse, even if he cracks half a board, then we might be able to lose this game because we did not establish enough follow-up. And that's a huge choke point that Jesse is gonna take in account in meanwhile he's trying to dismantle Tigershark endboard. So the sequence of this Carrot, I think he could never negate this Rainbow Bridge. I know it sounds crazy, but I don't think you can ever negate the Rainbow Bridge in this position. Let's proceed with the gameplay. Now, Rainbow Bridge gets negated. And now we have Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is gonna send Mudora. Now, do you remember when I told you the Spright is very important? Because it actually needs to be follow-up, because otherwise there is no kill line next turn. Jesse spotted it. And that's why he's the GOAT. Okay, I'm also gonna draw the GOAT for you. Po. And that's why he's the GOAT. Because he recognized a flaw in Tigershark endboard, and he pushed through it. He decided to instead making Foolish Burial a push, he decided to deal with the follow-up. Because if he's not able to crack through the board, Tigershark will have a hard time killing him. Okay? Now let's proceed. Now he goes for Imseti. Imseti is gonna pitch 3 Karma. Just is not only the GOAT, but he has the luckiest boom I ever seen in my life. Obviously, he did not open Trust, he did not open Grass, because the deck is so much different when they open those cards. It's actually way better, obviously. Anyways, he goes Imseti, pitch 3 Karma, and 3 Karma is very good in this position. So now he goes for Griffon, because he doesn't want to give Jesse one more card in the end. And also, he doesn't want him to establish a sarcophagus, because if a sarcophagus gets established on the board, he loses on the spot. Why? Because activate a sarcophagus, he activates, let's imagine that the Imseti resolves. He activates sarcophagus, he special summons the Imseti and the Yapi that are in the graveyard, and he can simply enter in battle phase. And he can deal with everything. and Tigershark has no follow-up at this point, the game would be over. So he is actually forced to negate with the Griffon at this point, which is basically what Jesse wanted him to do. And now, after he does that, there is a Trivikarma that's huge in this scenario. He goes Trivikarma. With Trivikarma, he's gonna add Perlereino. And now he goes for talent. He goes for talent to draw. He goes for talent to draw because the elf is dead. The carrot was used. There is no reason to take one of his monsters. Because the elf is dead because he has a Mudora in the graveyard. Right? So the only possible solution to this enigma is talent, draw 2 cards, and establish more advantage. All he needs to do, he does not need to kill in this scenario, he only needs to clear all the monster on Tigershark board. Because if he clears all the monsters on Tigershark board, the only top deck that makes him play, there are only 2 top decks actually, if he's playing the Nimble Beaver, or a starter. So Jesse knows that. And there is only 1 starter in the deck, and Beaver is limited to 1. And let's check the amount of cards in the deck. It should be like it's 25 with only 2 real top decks. The math is on his side. So the only thing that he needs to go is to clear the monster. He doesn't care about the back. He does not care about the back, because any level 2 plus a token makes a second elf. And elf is basically follow-up. So he needs to clear all the bodies. And that's why he's gonna go talent, draw 2. So now Jesse is gonna use Perlereino. Perlereino is gonna add a copy of Shaden. And now use Shaden. Tigershark is gonna chain elf, but this elf is dead because of Mudora. And as you can see, look what Jesse did. He does wanna give him a level 2. I mean, we could assume that he could have actually gave him a Terror Top, so he could actually put back the Terror Top in the deck. I think putting the Terror Top would have been actually okay, but he decides to shuffle only Jet. I don't think it's that crazy of a misplay or something like around those lines. Giving him a Terror Top more in the deck, it was just 1 more dead card, but like that doesn't matter. He just puts the Jet back. The elf does not resolve. The Shaden resolves by pitching Dotscaper. Now, he milled Jet, Rhino, and Dotscaper. Dotscaper will trigger in order to special summon itself. And then let's see if he has something for Rhino, I guess. So special summons Dotscaper, Chilling 1, Rhino, Chilling 2. It's free, and it's actually better to summon the Rhino, because Rhino is basically the same as Griff, but it's also a body on the board, and that's what we are looking at right now. Remember, we want bodies on the board because we need to clear bodies. So Jesse right now is not trying really to break the board and OTK, he's trying to establish a position in which he can summon many bodies, enter in battle phase, attack over his monsters, which there are already 2, as you can see. He can already out the elf and the carrot, and then clear later on with the Perlereino the token. That's basically his game plan right now, and he already decided how he wants to play this situation out. So to Rhino artifact, Tigershark decides to go for impermanence. Obviously, that's not okay. And now we have, in my opinion, a battle phase. He has to go for a battle phase. Actually, he decides to go for Linguribo, but it's still a battle phase anyway. So he just special summoned the Linguribo, and then he went for a battle phase. The sequence here doesn't really matter. and he's gonna clear the elf, and he's gonna clear the carrot. Okay, and then clears the carrot. Now, and then he decides to go for redoer effect. Now, again, redoer effect cannot really be stopped. As I told you guys previously, Tigershark opened 3 impermanents, okay? Those 3 cards are 3 impermanents, which is kinda crazy, right? If he chains impermanents to redoer, Linguribo negates the impermanent. And then you would say, Nash, but he can just chain the second impermanence or redoer, right? And you would think, but that's fine. No, that's not fine, because that means the redoer during Tigershark turn can use his effect in order to fusion summon. And then he has the field spell to pop, and he has Kaleido to spin back. So he can never use those impermanents. Jesse Kotton put Tigershark in a situation in which those 3 impermanents are dead. So, Sharon effect will trigger. And now Jesse summons Kitkalos, Chainlink 1 Kit, Chainlink to field spell, targeting the token. Let's talk about it. I told you guys that Jesse wanted to guarantee to clear all the bodies because Spright has a no full follow-up, okay? So he went for Kitkalos, Chainlink 1, and field spell Chainlink 2, targeting the token. Why did he not target the back row? Why did he not target the back row? Because Jesse Kotton read that there are 3 impermanents. That sounds like a wild read, but there is no other card it could be. There is literally no other card. Could be Crossout. Could be Crossout. Could be 1, could be Crossout. But he can definitely play around those 3 impermanents. Why does he pop the token instead of popping one of the back row? It's because if he targets one of the back row, he chains one of the imperms on the Kitkalos. It can never be called by. Can never be called by because there were Dim Seti that was used previously and he had to waste a Griffon on it. So can never be called by. So what happens is if you use the field spell to pop a back row, the impermanence gets chained to the Kitkalos. Then we will see Linguribo to be chained to the impermanence. But then the last impermanence is gonna strike. Which means that Tigershark will have a body on the board because Jesse will have to pass. So any level 2 on the top of Tigershark will make elf summon back, guarantee follow-up, and basically establish an OTK line. So just in this situation is giving priority to this token because this token cannot stick on the board no matter what. So, impermanence, chain the effect of Kit, chain Linguribo. Like the depths of Jesse Kotton read are beyond human comprehension. I mean, this, to be honest, was a very straightforward gameplay from this point on. But the fact that he realized all the choke points in a matter of seconds, that's not human behavior. Anyways, we see the double impermanence in this situation. That has to be used. Like, he's forced to do that. Pops the token, negates the Kitkalos, end phase, the redoer comes back. And now, it's the turn of Tigershark, time thief redoer, it keeps the top deck, that's Jet. And then we see Fateful Adventure, is gonna add Water Enchantress. And then we see Water Enchantress adds the Arameshir. normal summon Ash. Now, normal summon Ash is very scary. Normal summon Ash is very scary here, and I will explain you why. Because if Tigershark is playing Gita, he can go summon the token, target the Jet Synchron that's in Jesse Graveyard, make Elf, can ribbon blue, and from here he can establish the OTK. But the situation goes as follows. This guy decided to play Typhoon. Instead of Dark Charmer, he decided to play the Herald Exceed instead of Fire Charmer Ita. And considering the fact that he's playing Hero Kid, I would have also played the Earth Charmer, to be honest. Anyways, Typhoon is probably the worst extra deck card on Master 2. And you say, Nation, but sometimes, not all the times, Typhoon comes up, you clear the body, you attack, you Gucci. Every time you summon a Typhoon, it's because your pants smells like shit because you are losing that game anyways. So, this card sucks, in my opinion. Anyways, he is one of my teammates, Zio Mundri. I love you, Zio. You know that you are the best, but holy shit, Typhoon is us. So we will proceed on the rest of the turn. Like he goes Typhoon. Typhoon attacks over the key. End phase. And the next turn, Redoer attaches a monster. It's gonna be like red. If it was red, would have been such. Anyways, goes for red. Jet discard Rainbow Bridge. He has still the Tortua in the deck. So we go Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. Rainbow Bridge of Salvation is gonna add the Turtle. And it's actually interesting. It is actually interesting how he got punished by the fact that he negated Rainbow Bridge of Salvation the turn before. Because Rainbow Bridge of Salvation has a very interesting text that says you can only apply each effect of Rainbow Bridge of Salvation once per duel. Once per duel. If you negate the effect of Rainbow Bridge, Jesse will be able to use the effect the next turn again. If we were not negating the Rainbow Bridge the previous turn, this would not happen, because the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation is once per duel. And, like, seems very ironic, he got punished for that. And from here on, it's basically over, because we see the Imperial. We got basically the Imperial that's gonna be the walls, that's gonna be Sarcophagus once it's established on the board. Special summon Jet going to Anya, it doesn't really matter. Normal summon the Crystal Beast. Go into a Dark Charm. Dark Charmer effect is gonna special summon ESP. Then Jesse Kotton decides on resolution to use the wall the walls of Imperial, that's basically King Sarcophagus once established on the board. Special summon up. Special summon the himself. Enter in battle. And the transformation. I hope you guys appreciated this analysis. And leave in the comment section below what you guys think about what was, in your opinion, the most optimal play. Remember that this was a very high stake game. Remember that we were at Worlds. Obviously mistake happens. I'm not here to bash any of those player decisions. I'm just here for educational purpose because I love this fucking game. That's it. I wish you guys a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.